Hillary's over there brushing her teeth. She'll be joining us shortly to help pressure can. When we were in Loretto the other day, we found a carniceria and got ourselves a bunch of meat, chorizo. I think we bought about, was it like 4 kilos?
4 kilos.
4 kilos, which we're thinking will get us about 8 to 9 jars of chorizo, we'll see. So we're going to can it up today. We're going to get it out, we're going to brown it, put it in the cans, and then put it on the pressure cooker before it gets too hot, if there is such a thing. So we're just going to kind of brown the meat first up.
We're not cooking it through or anything, just giving it a bit of color so it doesn't kind of turn that pink gray color in the jar. So we have just under 4 kilos of chorizo that we got, which is about 8.5 pounds. From our last canning session, we determined that it's just under half a kilo per jar, which equals 1 pound per jar.
That's a lot of meat.
That's a lot of meat.
So the important thing here is that we just replace these lids.
Yep, always use brand new lids.
The rings are fine, we'll reuse those. We try and keep them out of salt water, we're not screwing them on tight. But new lids is important. We don't want anything around the seal or on the rims of these, so we'll give those a clean as well once we've packed the jars.
In the bottom of each jar, before we put the meat in, put a half a teaspoon of salt. So to prepare these lids, we're going to drop them in that pan over there. We got some hot water in there. Let them sit for a couple minutes in the hot water. That'll make sure that they are clean, and also softens the rubber around the seal so that we can get a really good seal. And we make sure that they aren't stacked directly on top of each other so they don't stick together. So we fill it till it's just under that first rim there.
We've filled it to, on here there's like a little fill line on the jar actually, so we're filled up to that, but basically just under the rim, where you can see the top rim here.
Our chorizo this time ended up being pretty juicy, so we didn't need to add any liquid to it. But if you're using a drier meat, you want to top it off with water.
And then we're going to clean the tops of these. We're going to make sure there's no air in any of this, so we smushed it down to get as much air out as we could and get it all filled. A hot paper towel around the rim to make sure the rim's nice and clean, and then without touching the rim we'll lift it up and put the lid on. We'll try not to contaminate under where the seal is. That's why we're being careful with these, and also cleaning the rim of the jars. You don't want to get any debris under the seal so that it gets a good seal. I'm going to put the rims on. Finger tight, we're not going to go on very tight on these at all.
Yep, if you go too tight then the pressure can't release out of the cans and the lids will crinkle.
That's what we found.
That's what we found, yep. So before we get the pressure cooker going and get the lid on, we have our lid here. We're going to check this rubber seal to make sure the seal is good, it's not gummed up or cracked or anything like that.
The most precious part now though, we're using all our fresh water.
I know, that's the tough thing on a boat.
Alright, we've got it filled with a decent amount of water right now, and then we'll add as we go. Obviously the jars here, that's why we just do a full batch, because it's going to displace the water and it'll use less water. So we want the water in here in the pressure canner to come up to the rim on all the jars. So we'll add, obviously we're going to need to add some more water here, but I'll get it started. I don't want to overuse our water because we're limited on how much water we've got. And that's pretty close.
Just about right.
I'd say that's good right there.
That's perfect, yeah.
Because of the way our stove is and the way the pressure canner sits, it doesn't really sit really good just over one burner. So to get it up to pressure, we've got 2 burners running because we really like the heat here. So we figured run 2 burners to get it up to heat, and then we can move it over to 1. We'll get that on and heat it up. Once it's going, I think we're going to take a swim.
Once we have that lid on, we'll wait for it to come up to pressure, and wait for steam to come out the top there.
Okay, so we've got a constant flow of steam coming out now, so there's no air in there. Also, our little safety locks popped up. So we're going to put the weight on, our 10-pound weight, and then we'll wait for that to come back up and start rocking, and then we'll switch one of the burners off and let it sit for an hour.
Once the cooker has come up to pressure with the weight rocking, or in our case, regularly releasing a little bit of pressure, we set the timer and let it sit. We do our meat for 1 hour, with the exception of fish, which we do for 90 minutes. Alright, so our time is up. Turned off the gas. Kind of bent it a little bit. Once there's not crazy steam coming off, I'll take that off. Now we just wait for that little pressure release valve to pop down. That tells us it's at a safe pressure to open. Alright, we got the lid off. So now the next step is to let them cool as slowly as possible, and that helps you make sure that you get a really good seal, that vacuum seal. The slower you cool them, the better that will be. So they're still really hot, so we're going to wrap them in a towel to make sure that they cool nice and slow, stay insulated. Alright, so our jars have all cooled down now. Here they are. They look delicious. Got all the nice juices in there. And one thing you want to do, all of our lids are nice, have a nice seal on them. There's no gap, you can't press any air in there. And the last thing we'll do is the lift test. So we'll take this ring off and just lift it with your fingers by the lid. If it sticks, it's sealed. So it should take a little bit of effort to pry that off. And you actually can store them just like this. You don't need to put the metal ring on there. But we do leave the ring on because we store them in a cupboard and we're sailing and the boat's bouncing around sometimes. So we don't want a lid to accidentally be popped off and create chorizo mess in the cupboard. So now all we have to do is label them with the date that we packed them. Put them in the cupboard and they're good. They'll be good in a couple months or in a year if we want. Thanks so much for watching, and a huge thanks to our patrons who support the making of these videos. Remember to give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. Until next time, adios.